Hello everybody, this is Peter Svidler for Chess24 and I'm starting my new Banter Blitz session. We discussed it with the management, and the suggestion was that with my face in the bottom left corner, when I actually play the game, the board is not big enough. So I will, whenever I don't forget, I will try and switch the camera off when I start a new game so that you have a larger board and you just have the audio. I hope you like that way better, and we can discuss it afterwards and choose whether I will proceed with this setup or return to the setup with the face in the corner. I'm not quite sure which is better, to be honest. So let's start picking the challenges, and good luck to everyone. As usual, we'll start with somebody who's been waiting for a while. I don't know why I keep on playing Sicilian. I should play more openings. I should play the Alechian or something. But Sicilian is fun, so it's hard to... I mean, when I don't think about the opening choices, I tend to gravitate towards playing the Sicilian because it's, you know, the most enjoyable opening to play. A3 and F3 are somewhat slow. I wouldn't say bad, but somewhat slow. And in a position like this, if I play... I mean, I can play d6 and then we will transpose to some kind of a English attack. But what I should try and do, I think, generally speaking, is aim for d7, d5 to solve my, well, I wouldn't call them problems, but generally speaking, getting the d5 break as early as possible is very advantageous for black in structures like this. So I will be aiming for that here. Especially if white castles short. I still think he should have gone queen d2 and castled long, because with the king on g1, the second bishop often comes to d6, hitting the pawn on h2, gaining additional tempi. I mean, I can do it even here. Although, I mean, you need to pay attention to moves like knight f5, but I think here it wasn't really working, and I'm not sure why I was given a pawn with check, but not taking it would be a bit strange. I'm not certain bishop f4 was so great, but I don't think I was in time with the mating attacks connected with, let's say, bishop g3, because if I play bishop g3, he still has the knight f5 shot. And by playing bishop f4, I'm trying to simplify for now, finish development, castle, bring the knight into play, and then I will have a healthy extra pawn in a position which should be quite enjoyable to play, generally speaking. The evaluation of what I'm doing depends on whether he can take and play c4, but I think I'm fine after that, as far as I could work out. I should be fine here. Because once he takes on c4, the rook is momentarily unprised on c4, and he cannot play knight takes c6 because I will take on c4 with the queen. That's a very important tactical detail. Otherwise knight takes c6 would be a major issue. And also, knight takes c6 can be replied to by queen h6 check. So I have time to bring my knight into play, which is very important. He still has some compensation if he plays knight c6 here, though, because my rook on a8 is stuck doing not very much for now, and he can just start running the queenside pawns up the board. Just play, let's say, knight c6. I'll play queen h6 check. King g1, and then just play b4, a4, b5, and run the pawn. As I said, run the pawn up the board. But if he doesn't do that, if he fails to play knight c6, and if I bring the rooks into play, then I'm just, I have an extra pawn and also the better position. So this now should be convertible. There's also a tactical shot knight g4, which I need to evaluate correctly, because after knight g4 I can play queen h4. I almost played it, but then I spotted queen h4, and after queen h4 things get a bit messy, so I should probably avoid that. I can just play something like queen d6, go slightly slower for now. Compared to the positions where he could have played knight c6 earlier, although, I mean, I'm still misplaying it to a reasonably large degree actually, because knight c6 even here would have been an unpleasant move to face. Knight c6, I wanted to play rook d7, but then rook d4 actually hits. No, I have knight d5, sorry, I'm rambling a little bit. The fact of the matter is, I am in this position. If we go back to the position we were discussing, let's say this one, if white goes knight c6 here, queen h6 check, and king g1, both of my rooks have great difficulty getting to any of the open files, because the b8 and the d8 squares are occupied by the knight, and the c8 square will constantly be unavailable because of knight e7 check. So that would have been clearly the way to go here. Anyway, back to the challenge list. And I will try to rotate through the opening slightly, well, more than I am doing currently, because I think it's interesting to see all kinds of different structures, not just the opening, well, the e4 openings with white and Sicilians against e4 with black. Although, I mean, that is what I would normally play if this were a serious blitz tournament. That's actually not entirely true. I thought about it for a second. That's actually not entirely true, because these days when I play serious rated blitz tournaments, I tend to play a lot of one knight f3 actually, just to avoid playing theory of any kind and aiming just to play chess as much as possible. If he plays rook e8, this is the this is the Zaitsev system, which I played with black on a number of occasions, and also with white when people played against me. It's a very complicated, generally leads to very complicated structures where play is quite complex. I'm not sure what rook c8 is. I haven't seen this move before, and I don't think I like it particularly much, to be honest. I'm not quite sure what this is for. The inclusion of a3 on move 12 is precisely for this. After knight a5, white would very much like to keep the bishop on this diagonal, so that the c4 square is under control, and generally it's just a fantastic diagonal for the white bishop. I'm slightly curious about c takes d5 here, but I don't think it's correct. I think I should be able to refute it, although it might be more interesting than I originally thought. And if he does this, then we end up in a structure which is quite typical here. It's very important for white to get rid of this dark squared bishop as early as possible, especially for traded for this knight on f6, because otherwise black gets a lot of pressure against the... I might actually wait until he goes h6, or I can put additional pressure on the c4 pawn by playing knight g2. Both are sensible, but after knight g2 he has g5, so I think I can play something like queen e2 here. The point is, I briefly considered whether this is a pawn blunder, because bishop takes e4, bishop f6, bishop takes f3 would pick up the pawn, but after bishop e4 I can take queen takes e4, knight takes e4, and bishop takes d8. Yeah, this I think just allows me to pick up the c4 pawn for more or less nothing. Well, not entirely nothing, but it's a whole pawn. But the general positional point I was trying to make is that that bishop on c1, if black is in time to play h6 and keep it to the c1 square, it's incredibly difficult to include it into play. It gets stuck there in a lot of cases. Both knight d4 and knight d2 look very attractive here. I'm not sure which is best. I'll go knight d2 because it's, well, the greedier option, but to be honest, I suspect knight d4 may have been stronger. Now I have to pay attention to my king side because, yeah, precisely. This bishop on d6 is headed towards g3, which is quite, well, potentially very uncomfortable. Although, I mean, if he does it like this, I think I can play e5. It's very important for me to cross this threshold. Close down the bishop on d6 as much as possible, and now I feel much better about my position. I don't really care about the a3 pawn. Maybe I should, but I don't. It's much more important for me to start driving my pieces forward here. I should also try and not blunder any mate here, but I don't see it. So let's, I mean, if there is mate here somewhere, I'll be very disappointed, but I don't see it. And the rook ending is of course completely winning because I'm 2 pawns up here. Shouldn't have, you know, any difficulty conversing this. I can also do this first, drive his king somewhere, and then return to d1. Now the threat is rook e8, and only after he goes rook c7 I pick up the a6 pawn. And well, this is a reasonably easy technical win, obviously. And my first pre-move of the day. Isn't that wonderful? So, going okay so far, seemingly. Let's see if we get any title challenges. The winner of the first, well, or potentially the first Banter Brawl, Mr. Jan Gustafson, who you all know. Why I'm constantly white? Yeah, I promised to switch. The winner of the first Banter Blitz half threatened to drop in today, but I don't see him on the list as yet. If he shows up, I will definitely play him, because by failing utterly to show up for my first round game, I gave him, as it turned out, enough of a head start so that I never actually caught up with him and didn't play him in the Banter Brawl, which is regrettable, and I would very much like to make him eat at least some of the words he said in the run-up to the event. Or possibly lose horribly and regret I ever said anything. Both are very possible. I'm misplaying this somewhat. I think, generally speaking, castles b6 is not supposed to be particularly good, but it might be very good now, because I think my play has been a bit too abstract, which I will have to correct somehow. The knight doesn't really belong on e5. That was, I don't like that move in retrospect. I think it shouldn't have gone there. And now I'm facing a decision. I think I should just accept this was a misplay and return it, because it belongs on d4, and it gets it gets in the way of my own pieces on e5. It's also very important not to allow bishop f6, because not to allow it before I put my bishop on that diagonal. e3 will run into bishop a6 though. I mean, e3 would be something I would like to play here, all things considered, but I don't think I can. Black is, I think, generally very, very comfortable here, and also I should start playing faster. This is a very comfortable position for black because I don't really have any plans. This makes my life slightly simpler, I believe. I don't think black should be aiming for that trade in particular. Although he is still fine, of course. And unfortunately for me, I need to pay constant attention to this f2 pawn, so I can't actually position my pieces the way I would ideally like. Precisely like that, for instance, is a problem for me. Yeah, I wanted to play rook queen e1 here, which is simply impossible because bishop a6 is very strong. Yeah, this is not going at all well. I have some compensation for the pawn, but not enough, and I also have only 22 seconds, which I think will decide the game eventually, regardless of what the objective assessment is here. Which is kind of sad. I can still play for... I mean, the knight and queen are a very decent combo, and I'm probably not worse right now, but I don't think I will make all of my moves in time. So as I said, the objective evaluation of this position is quite possibly irrelevant. Although I'm probably just winning now. Because my opponent forgot about knight e7, I'm probably objectively winning here. Unless he decides to flog me. And he might actually flog me if he takes on e7. But if that happens, it happens. I should have been faster earlier. Clearly. So, apart from queen takes e7, I think nothing else actually prevents mate. So, well, you can play queen c8 as well, but that is a miserable choice. So I got slightly lucky with the... yeah. Yeah, I got lucky with this one. Quite obviously, I got completely outplayed coming out of the opening, starting with bishop f4, knight e5. I think those were just moves made without any thought of the forthcoming structure. So I wasted about 3 tempi repositioning my pieces to proper places, and after that, of course, black can never be worse. And for large parts of this game, I got completely outplayed by David, but then I found a bit of a cheapo, which helps when you're playing blitz. Okay, e4, d4, c4. And I should maybe try specifically to look for challenges in which I will be playing black, because I shouldn't be playing white all the time, clearly. That would be wrong. This is a very tricky line, actually. This is... I know a little bit about it, but nowhere near enough. And it kind of depends on how much my opponent knows. But you're not supposed to play d6. You're supposed to accept the pawn sacrifice I just offered by taking on d4 and playing knight takes e5. And then white gets a lot of play for that pawn if I remember correctly, but there's a lot of theory connected with it. It's a very complicated position. After d6 I should somehow be better, but exactly how is not immediately obvious to me. I'm going simply on the fact that this is not the main line. Okay, let's try to play fast. Not in terms of playing speed, but I mean try and exploit the slight edge in development I seem to have right now. Yeah, still not pre-moving properly. I should be doing that more. I quite like my position now, though. With this series of exchanges, I managed to. Rook e1 check is very interesting here as an option. I mean, also knight takes d5, but knight takes d5 is a bit dry. Mainly torn between cd5 and rook e1 check, but I think I will stick with the more natural move. The d passer is actually a decent trump for me here. a6, I quite like a6. He needs to have some counterplay, and now, yeah, I need to once again. I think it's time for me to start something immediate. I need to create some sort of initiative on the king side, and by playing g4, I'm not sure if this is correct. I mean, in sort of mathematical sense. Yeah, I forgot about bishop h5. It probably isn't actually. Bishop h5 is a large problem. I got slightly overexcited because I do need to open up files on the king side, but not like this. Not when I allow him this kind of a block. Completely forgot about bishop h5. I'm in a decent bit of trouble here. I'm not entirely sure what I will do if he takes on d5. It's a bit of a bluff. I mean, I win some tempi if he goes knight takes d5, and if he does this, at least I can try and open some files on the king side somehow. Although exactly how is not immediately obvious. Yeah, stopping queen c4 check is a decent idea. I quite like this move. I will play h5 if given an opportunity, but yeah, this is, I mean, if I have to take on c5, I might be objectively lost, but I don't think I have any choice. I think I need to go for this. But actually, yeah, rook e4 probably just wins on the spot. This is regrettable. After knight e4, I thought I can mess around a little bit. I can at least create some issues. Although before now is a threat. Yeah, I'm still in a lot of trouble here. I got way overexcited with g4, sadly. Yeah, and I'm also getting flagged here. Well, not flagged, I mean flagged applies to positions where I'm better. I'm quite clearly not better here. I will lose on time is what I'm trying to say. Yeah, I think I mean, one move blunders in games which my opponent has played very well, you know, they shouldn't be punished so harshly. I mean, he was in this position. Black is, I mean, if he plays king h8, he is more or less completely winning. So I think taking a draw for there is the least well, I mean, I'm still losing on time, but if he is prepared to take a draw in a position which he only needs to continue playing for a bit to flag me, I mean, it's fine. Okay. Let's see if I can find a black game somewhere. Okay, I already played one Sicilian. Let's try something else altogether. I played some Caro in my life, but not a lot, and sometimes with absolutely disastrous results. So I have, you know, a very mixed set of memories connected with this opening, but it's a sound opening. You should just generally play it better than I tend to do. And knight f3 is slightly sad, because if he takes on f6 now and goes something like bishop c4, the resulting positions, you know, this type of positions is very, very dry and very, very difficult to do something against. This is mystifying. This is very mystifying, because you need the bishop on d3 for this to work properly. With the bishop on d3, there is knight e6. Yeah, and this is, well, this was a bit of a misplay, obviously, from white. I mean, g5 is, once again, I'm getting slightly overexcited, but why not? Yeah, and this endgame will be fantastic for me. Well, I mean, more than fantastic, the e5 pawn will fall. So, yeah, I can play bishop g7, but then he can... no, I think I should, actually. I think bishop g7 is slightly stronger. Not much difference, but if he takes on g5 twice, I take on e5, I hit the b2 pawn, I also hit the h2 pawn, and I also have the rook takes h3 tactic, followed by knight f2 and knight takes h1. So this way, generally speaking, I think it will transpose to something, but I give him additional options. And as a kind of a general principle, if you think two moves are of a very similar strength and your opponent can reply immediately to one of them and needs to think after the other, it more often than not makes sense to make the move which will make your opponent think. I mean, it should go without saying, but it actually isn't that obvious to many people. I think it's a reasonable little bit of advice which you should be trying to follow in your games as well. Kind of practical advice on how to create the largest amount of trouble for your opponent. Makes even more sense in a blitz game where time management is plays such a huge role. By playing bishop g7, I somehow prompted my opponent to go king e2, which is, I mean, he is still stuck with this king on e2 now, 7 moves later. So that has gone very, very well. My position was quite good anyway, but I mean, the point stands. And now I'm 2 pawns up, but even, let's say, even if it were 1 pawn, the position is just quite easily technically winning, because my bishops dominate the entire board. a2 is now hanging, but once again, it's not even about the pawns. It's the fact that the white pieces have no squares, and my bishops control everything, and also it's very difficult for him even to bring the pieces into play, because as I said, I control the entire battlefield, so to speak. There should be some kind of a forced win now. And by playing c5, c4, I'm trying to drive away the knight from d3, and then I will have all kinds of discovered check with the d4 bishop, so that should pick up material. Or lead to a mating attack potentially. I think knight c1 might actually save him from immediate material loss, but yeah, here I should somehow, yeah, I think sadly there is nothing better than winning a piece in one move. I was trying to find a way to go for direct mate somewhere, but I don't see it. But bishop b6 discovered check picks up the bishop on e2 next move, so you know, can't be a bad move. So I've played the Caro, I've played the Sicilian, I tried played the Alechian without much success. Let's go for the Perk now. I played a lot of this in the mid-90s, and I honestly felt this is quite playable and decent against more or less any opposition, but yeah, you need to know theory, and I honestly don't remember anything at all about, let's say, this position, which is not ideal. This is an incredibly sharp position in which you are advised to have an idea what you're doing. The moves you see me make right now are what I think I'm supposed to play here, but I honestly have no clue. It's been such a long time since I returned to this material. Yeah, and taking with the e-pawn is... No, I think I need to bite the bullet and take with the bishop. And if the queen does appear on the h-file, I will get mated, but I don't see, at least immediately, how it will happen. So this might actually be half playable. Yeah, I forgot about knight g5 altogether. This is very regrettable because I need to be, I'm not at all certain. I mean, bishop f5 I played way too fast. In a position like this, I really can't afford to make moves without thinking, because it might lead to immediate mate, which is not something you want. Yeah, this is very critical now, and by critical I mean probably incredibly bad. I shouldn't have gotten involved with this line. There are positions which are somewhat easier to play for the black player in the Perk if he doesn't really remember theory. Thing is, I can't even see how I'm avoiding mate here, which is bad. I wanted to go king g7, but then he goes rook h7, check. I mean, really, what am I supposed to do here? This, kind of avoids immediate mate. Kind of. But not really. Very sad. And unfortunately I can't play, a quiet move here, something like rook somewhere, because queen h7 check and queen h8 check would win a whole rook. So I have to go for this position. Yeah, this is a good move. This I hadn't seen in advance, but it probably buries me altogether. Frankly, unsurprising that this is happening, because as I already pointed out, I have entered a line which, well, if you are not entirely sure what you're doing there, you will regret playing this. That's mystifying, but probably still completely winning, I don't know. Yeah, also I have no time, which is going to decide the game. Maybe I could have posed some problems here, maybe, potentially, but not with 8 seconds. And not even objectively. Yeah, this is Completely lost. Queen h7 check is actually mate in an, or queen h8, any move. Yeah, any move here wins more or less on the spot. Yeah, this is rook h7 is made on the board. Well played by my opponent, but this is the thing about the e5 line. Most people play bishop d3 here because they're too lazy to study this position after e5, knight fd7, and h4. I did have a reasonably deep look at this when I was, a practicing Perk player, but that was, as I said, somewhere around 20 years ago, and it's very little surprise that I couldn't really remember much about this position. And also, the existence of this line is one of the, perhaps the main reason why most sane people play c5 in this position, which leads to a whole different group of positions I was trying to avoid in the mid-90s. Okay, back to the list of challenges. Don't know. I think we're up to knight f3 now. Yeah, this is not the most exciting of the opening positions in the world. I'm kind of half praying. Yeah, this at least is playable for white. I think the saddest continuation for the white player here is something like b6, going for a completely symmetrical position. This, I should probably have played c4 on the previous move, but this at least we get some imbalanced positions somewhere. I can play d4, or I can play c4, d4, e3. Let's try this. Let's see how he reacts. This is not really something that should cause a black player any kind of alarm, but it's playable. I'm not sure if I maybe should have prepared c4 by going knight d2 first, because right now black can take on c4. But if he doesn't, then I will switch back to my, slightly quieter way of development. What I want to get is some position where I play queen c2, rook ac1, let's say rook fd1, e3, and then, I would like to maybe play knight f3, control the dark squares in the center even better. Those would be my next moves if I was given free rein here, so to speak. And I do not want to allow e7, e5. And this, I think, is strategically risky, because now I can use the fact that the c6 pawn is temporarily pinned. And by taking on d5 right now, I am forcing him to recapture with the knight, which leaves him with a compromised structure on the queen side. And suddenly I have something very, very tangible here. This is a very pleasant position for white now. The knight is headed towards c5, which is far and away the best square for this piece here. I maybe should have started with queen b2 check, but it felt slightly too fancy. Yeah, I think I should establish my knight on c5 as early as possible. Now a3 is actually a huge threat because his pieces are tangled up, and this should be punished somehow, but I will start by playing rook ac1, because if I play a3, he will play knight a6, and he will try and trade my pride and joy, my knight on c5, and I really, really do not want to allow him an easy trade of that piece. I should be winning material now. His plan is to go knight a6, but then momentarily he has this huge problem with the bishop on b5, which has no moves. And I can use it by playing knight e4, hitting the rook on d6, and now well, rook is obviously hanging, but an even bigger threat here is a3, a4, which he has no way of dealing with actually. So I'm picking up a great deal of material here. Yeah, now, I mean, I have an extra piece and I'm still in complete control on the board. I mean, the c6 pawn is weak, the knight on a6 has no moves. This is about as totally winning a position as you can get. Yeah, let's put it back on c5, it's a good square. Yeah, I forgot knight a2 here. I mean, I blundered the whole exchange, but I was a bit too relaxed because my position was so good. Haven't I played Mr. Big Chicken already today? Let me just check. Apparently not. Then I can do that with a clear conscience. And I will try not to touch anything because it seems like the stream is working fine as long as I don't touch anything at all. Yeah, I've played more or less every single move known to man in this position, but let's stick with the one I have made the most over the course of the years. There's obviously a great deal of theory involved with this position, and all the move orders are incredibly difficult to keep track of. I suspect you should reply to b5 by going a4, and black should not be so happy to go b5 so early, but we're both ad-libbing a little bit. And as a general principle, I think this knight belongs on d7, not on c6. And I'm trying to exploit this fact immediately because I am now threatening knight takes e7 and the pawn on d6 will be hanging. And if he takes on d5 with the knight, he loses a piece, obviously. And if he takes with the bishop, the knight will now have to go back to b8. So I won. Well, you can do that, but that's not good for a number of reasons. It was probably stronger to take with the bishop and the knight, but I really hate giving up the two bishops, so I chose to keep them purely because they look so very beautiful aiming at the black king side. And knight takes d5 will always be met by bishop e4, pinning the rook on a8, so I'm not, as you can see, I'm not worried about this at any point. Yeah, now, I mean, playing something like bishop takes g7 will, it actually won't, I can actually do this. My opponent probably was planning to play knight b4 here, but then I can play b3. I could start with b3, but this is even stronger. Yeah, now I will be up a great deal of material clearly. So that went reasonably well. I mean, I can try and be fanciful, but there's really no point. Okay, I will proceed under the assumption that I will get a Skype notification from somebody if the stream goes down again. I have no idea what causes this, but as I said, I will now abandon the switch between the full screen and full screen plus video because as far as I could tell, that was what was causing the breaks, and I think the viewers will prefer slightly smaller pieces to no stream at all. I'm looking for somebody higher rate. How? That's not actual Magnus. I was worried there for a second, but okay, I went knight f3 in the previous game, so I'm back to e4. It's somebody very, very decent though, judging by the rating. So I will try playing faster. A4 is not entirely forced after c6, but it's a reasonable way to proceed. Whoops. And he is also, despite the name and the high rating, not a premium user, so I should probably apologize, and I should probably yeah. Can I just resign here? Yeah, there will be compensation for not continuing. I misread the name, and somebody called Magnus, and then what looked to me in my present adult state like the word Carlson. I just couldn't, didn't really seem likely to me that he's not a premium user. So apologies for that. I will try not to do that again. Okay, this stream is going badly enough that I will venture French with black. This is really not an opening I know anything at all about from this side. I have some idea how to play it with white, although not a great deal of an idea. And more or less no idea at all how to play it with black. This is all theory, but once we are out of the moves I definitely know, then I will be in a good deal of trouble. I think after d4 in this position, I think I should go slower. I believe this is what Vasily Ivanchuk played against me all those years ago in Linares. I could be wrong though. This is an incredibly tricky variation to play for both sides, and that game against Ivanchuk was interesting in that for some reason I prepared this line specifically, well, not for that Linares, but in those years, at some point with my then coach Andrei Lukin, I spent something like a month looking at this line in great detail. And then when Vasily played this against me, I suddenly realized I don't remember anything at all, because all of those lines were a jumble in my head, and I couldn't really distinguish between them. So I spent an absolutely unbelievable amount of time on the next very short number of moves, and lost miserably. Which is something that can happen in this. I think I was too hasty with this capture on d2, because now after rook h3 I am lacking the next move. Because the h-pawn runs very fast here. I have no idea what I'm doing. And once again, this is not a line you should be playing if you have no idea what you're doing. I am threatening queen f2 check right now, but it's probably not enough for me to get anything decent going. At least I'm making some moves at tempo. And now I could be doing okay, I think, because the bishop on f1 is hanging, and I can play knight e7 if he gives me a check. And he will have to switch to some sort of defense here, which should give me time to do something positive of my own. Although I'm not entirely sure what. It's a really weird position. I can't seem to assess properly. Let's see if I can be better. I'm not sure I can objectively, but I am on exchange up. So it's not impossible for me to be better here. And now I probably am better because the h-pawn will fall. Yeah, I'm not, I mean, this is completely winning. He probably misplayed it. I mean, not probably, he quite certainly misplayed it somewhere. My position was nowhere as good as this when the complications started. And now I am totally winning. That was my, I think, first ever experience as a French player with black. It was confusing, as I expected it to be. Some of the people who have been waiting should be preferred, I guess. I'm not the world's biggest specialist on this set of openings, but let's pretend I am. I mean, I played this position enough in my life, but I can't really claim any proper knowledge of it. This is a very interesting line, which I honestly don't remember anything at all about. There is a great deal of theory here, which, once again, a player trying to play this with white should know, but I don't. This is probably not the best move, but why is the big question. This should not be any good. But there are so many attractive options for me here. I could play bishop e2, I could play bishop e3, I could also just play knight takes d5. All of those moves looked very, very attractive. But by playing bishop g5, I'm creating a huge threat of knight takes d5 here. And hang on a second, I need to be precise about this, but I should be doing very, very well here. Because if I do this, the only square he can actually choose here, so as not to lose the queen immediately, is d8. And then I will pick up the f6 pawn with check, and then I will pick the c4 pawn as well. So material balance will be restored, and he will have a king on e7, which is a very, very, I mean, clearly a very decent scenario for white. Game is still not over because the pawns on c5 and d4 prevent me from developing, you know, an immediate crushing, sort of finishing attack in this position. But there can be no doubt as to what the assessment is here. I don't know. I mean, playing knight g2 feels. I wanted to say wrong, but actually this move creates additional threats, so I'm fine with choosing it over the other alternatives. And now I want to break up his structure on the queen side by playing b4. If he takes with the queen, I have rook b1, so he will have to take. Well, he will either have to retreat with the queen, and then I will take on c5, or this should be very, very good for me. That was the major point of b4. Now the rook gets included in the attack, and now I should be breaking through. Yeah, this is, well, almost mate, should be almost mate. I just need to be precise about it. Creating a threat of mate in 1 with queen a8 mate. And if he goes bishop b7, I will play queen f7. Followed by queen takes e6. The queen gets to e6 very fast. And then it should be mate next, well, more or less next move. Yeah, that was the variation I was referring to. And now queen d7 mate is a reasonably large threat. Okay. Some black games maybe. If I can find anyone who specified he wants to play white. Once again in this short break, I apologize for all the technical problems I've had with today's stream. I'm not at home, I'm at the summer house we have in the country. And the connection here is actually stronger than I have at home. I have no idea what's wrong with it and why what's happening. Okay, in the spirit, I mean, I have already gotten mated on the board once today. In the same spirit, let's accept the gambit and see if I can get myself mated again here. Objectively speaking, I think black should be fine in a position like this. I mean, there's always compensation, but if black is careful, he should be able to weather the storm here and survive. And you know, a pawn is a pawn, so to speak. Some care is of course still required. I maybe should have gone d6 instead, followed by knight f6. I mean, black's position would have been much easier to play with the knight on f6, not on e7, but it looked risky. As does this, if I'm entirely honest. But I'm maybe a couple of moves away from more or less complete safety. And I think it's a wrong piece. I think the knight should have gone to g5. This is good on general grounds, but it's a bit too slow. And now I think I should be able very, very slowly to get out of the corner here and have a good position. My aim, of course, is to simplify here. I would like to exchange as many pieces as possible. In that spirit, right now I want to take on f3, play knight e5 next move, take on c4, and only after that unpin myself with queen d7. And if this does happen, I will have a healthy extra pawn. Yeah, we are headed towards that exact position. And I even managed to get some pre-moves in, which has been my ambition for today's stream. After e5, which I think is what he should do here, I have rook e8, which will create threat of further simplification, and this is a whole second pawn actually, so I don't know if this is a misclick or some kind of a strange miscalculation, but now my position is, well, technically winning because I'm 2 pawns up for more or less nothing. No weaknesses, better structure. And this way I'm picking up a further pawn on c4, so white's position is crumbling. Okay, let's see if I'm specifically looking for Jan, who promised to troll the stream. So far he's not been trolling it, but he has been very helpful in with you know, telling me when the stream is down, and I appreciate his timely reminders to check that the stream is alive. And he also tells me here that he is here. Here as in where exactly? There he is. I can't read. That's regrettable. I thought that, you know, the ability to read was one of my stronger points. So this is what we're doing next then. This one doesn't seem to be starting. I'll give it another 3 seconds, and then we'll get the promised showdown. Hang on. All kinds of misclicking going on, but there he is. Okay. No fooling around in this game. I will be playing my own repertoire. Just kidding, I won't. Okay. Yeah, let's go. This is a bit of a troll opening, but it's surprisingly nowhere near as bad as it looks. I played this twice in my life, and one of those 2 games was actually against Vladimir Kramnik in London Classic, of all places. And I was completely and utterly winning in that game. I managed to lose it when we were both down to very little time, but I was completely and utterly winning at one point. And I also played it against Hismaturin in last year's Super Final. I wasn't doing well at any point in that game, but that was due to me making a very poor choice later on. It wasn't due to the actual second knight f6. Yeah, and this is a tricky structure to play. I think I should, you know, it's important in many positions here to get h6 included before white can establish some kind of a setup with a bishop on e3 and a queen on d2. This way, at least, I will manage to get some pieces off. In an excellent book by Boris Gelfand on, I forget the title right now, but it's to do with the positional understanding and decision making in chess. He gives a fantastic example of what a space advantage is, and he shows the position with exactly the same structure, but in one position white has 4 light pieces and black has obviously 4 light pieces. And black's position feels incredibly cramped because white has this kind of a c4 d5 setup against the c7 d6 setup. Whereas if you take some light pieces off, the exact same setup feels much more playable because you have fewer pieces that are trying to occupy the same squares. Even this is not entirely equal, and I wanted to go knight d7, but unfortunately g4 wins material. This is regrettable, and I'm trying to find a workaround. So the point Boris is making in the book, and the point I was trying to perhaps, well, not perhaps, but definitely nowhere near as eloquently as Boris does, I was trying to make just now, is that how cramped your position feels, it depends very much on how many light pieces you have left. And if you manage to simplify enough, I'm not quite sure what I should take with here. I mean, getting rid of the dark squared bishops is a good thing, but also I don't really want the knight on e8. I would really, really like to get knight d7 in at some point. Now let's try and go for the sort of absolute best scenario and see where this lands us. That was kind of my idea, because now if he goes g4, I can take and play knight e5, and the bishop on f3 will be hanging. So I'm getting exactly the setup I was really hoping to get here. Good move, because the bishop was actually getting in the way on f3. Very decent move. Yeah, I'm not sure this was so wise. Precisely because of this. Yeah, I forgot about f4. And now I'm once again... luckily for me, so many pieces came off that I have squares for the bishop. But this is far from comfortable. Should be playable though. And by playing g5, I'm trying to establish some squares for my pieces. Now I need to somehow solve the problem of, I mean, I don't really want to lose this bishop on c2. And it is still in bad trouble. But I think by doing this it escapes. And if it does escape, my position is actually kind of healthy. Because now the structure is quite decent. My point, of course, is I want to play knight a4 next move. And the evaluation of this position, I suspect, very much depends on whether I run into some serious trouble if he goes c5, c6. Which I might, but I don't see any immediate refutation. Okay. Hang on, will I get... Does it get caught there? No, I don't think it does. I think I can play bishop g2. It's a tricky position, but... Yeah, and here my point was, I thought I will be able to meet c6 with b5. Yeah. But of course, you know, hoping that Jan plays c6 too early was way too much to hope for. Yeah, this is very meh. Very, very meh now. What? This I failed to consider altogether, and what? Why? I think this gives me a lifeline here. I think c6 may have been winning, but this position I'm actually slightly better, if anything. No. Yeah, I'm such an idiot here. I forgot about I forgot about king c6 altogether. I didn't really need to do that. I could play bishop f3 immediately. Now it's probably some kind of a draw. This is very, very unfortunate. Bishop takes g4, king c7 is probably winning for him, so I should secure the queening square. But now the g-pawn runs very fast, no? What are you doing, Jan? Ah, he's in time. Ah, very smart. Very smart man, that Grandmaster Gustafson. But will it be enough to save him, though? Because now it's actually very difficult for him to approach the g-pawn. This might actually be winning for me, objectively. Yeah, that seems to be winning for me now. That wasn't particularly deserved, but yeah, that was... I think this endgame actually, it makes sense to return to this. In this position, a4 I quite like, but after king f6, a5 and king e7, I have a suspicion that c6 here might be winning if I more or less have to take. And now it's even possible to play bishop takes a6, I suspect. Let's say bishop takes d5, bishop b7, and start pushing the a-pawn. And if I play something like bishop f3, a6, king d8, the immediate a7 is not possible because of c5 discovered check. But white can just wait for one more move. And now I seem to have no defense against a7 and a8. So I think c6 instead of b5 was probably, to the best of my understanding, still very, very strong and probably winning for Jan. Got very lucky there. Okay. I think I more or less promised I will be playing the Dutch more in these streams, so let's keep that solemn promise and continue butchering this beautiful opening. This is probably already a reasonably bad move. I'm trying not to rush into anything here, but I have a feeling the position doesn't really support that. If I could magically transport my knight from b8 to c5 in this position, it would be, suddenly it would be a decent position for me, but it's hard to imagine this happening somehow. But it's something I should definitely aspire to. Whether I get there or not is immaterial. Whoa! Fulfillment of every single dream here. And suddenly my position is very, very tolerable at the very least. Not sure if I need to play a4. I think I should start by securing the c6 pawn once and for all. And I am somewhat dubious as to, how wise it is for white to open up my bishops here. But mainly for tactical reasons. I think positionally the idea to play e4 is sound, but you should not be, you should at the very least pay very, very good care. You don't blunder something once you've given up your dark squared bishop. And now it's well, it's a problem for white to keep material balance here. Yeah, after this I don't have anything stronger, so I should just pick this pawn up. Converting this will not be particularly easy, but it is a pawn. I think bishop takes f6 wasn't really forced. I guess my opponent was worried one of the knights will land on e4 if he doesn't do that, but objectively speaking, you should value your dark squared bishop greatly in this opening, and giving me an unopposed dark square bishop is should not be particularly good. This is a blunder. Unfortunately, I mean, once we got ourselves into this endgame, my opponent's he became slightly discouraged. That would be my guess. And now I can even return this pawn because I don't need to be 2 pawns up in a pawn endgame. 1 is more than enough. Title players, where are you? Okay, nowhere to be seen. We're past the 90-minute mark, but with all the breaks in transmission, I think I will play, let's call it 3 more games. I think that will be fair. Back to Sicilian. I haven't played Sicilian in a while. Had I known my opponent will play c3, I probably wouldn't have played this Sicilian. Or at least I would have picked a different second move. This is a very tricky position, which I've had long discussions about over the board against Alexander Morozevich, who played this on more than one occasion against me in various Blitz tournaments. And he tends to do very well against me, but well, both in general and in this position in particular, but I still believe black should be fine objectively. And I think the most critical move after e5, d4 is bishop d3 here. You should not be parting with your light squared bishop so lightly. That was a bit tautological, but it's been a long stream full of all kinds of adventures. What I would very much like to do after my opponent does this is give mate on the king side. And we will proceed under this assumption. I could even start with the immediate g5, but there were some tactical issues with that move. But now I will most certainly play g5. Now this you cannot do actually. I mean, this is a nice tactic, but the idea made sense even without it. We'll return to this in a moment. I actually, once again, I got slightly overexcited and I lost a game to one of the Chinese players in the preliminary Blitz. There was a Blitz tournament to determine the tie breaks for the classical. If the match is drawn, the team winning the Blitz match would have won the the classical, and in one of the games I was playing Liu Shanglei, who is an exceptional blitz player, and I got somewhat overexcited in a similar position, just as I did here, and was punished roundly. Unfortunately, queen g5, queen c8 check, I am not winning. I played rook g8 because I felt knight g2 will be impossible, but it actually is possible, which is very regrettable. Something needs to be done about this. This is a reasonably large misplay, and now I'm not quite sure what I'm supposed to do here. I should at least stop knight e4. I should start by asking myself what I don't want my opponent to achieve, and knight e4 will be very, very high on that list. So I should try and prevent knight e4 from ever happening. But yes, there is the issue of what I'm supposed to do if he goes f4. This is now going quite badly wrong. I mean, I'm still doing very well, but I should have been winning by now. Completely and utterly winning, and I'm not. After queen takes a6, I should have paid more care to what I was doing. I'm still a piece up, and provided I don't do anything really, really stupid, it should be enough to win the game, but it was a more winning position a minute ago, is what I'm trying to say. Hang on, I need to, once again, it would help if I paid attention to what's going on the board. Okay, once the queens come off, this should be a reasonably simple technical task. I am, after all, a full piece up. Okay, two more. Someone who's been waiting a while. David is asking for a rematch. Oops. But I think playing the same player again on the same day is wrong on general grounds. I've lost track of what was the last move I made in this position, but let's assume c4 hasn't been played in a while and go back to c4. Okay, a chance to show off my complete and utter misunderstanding of the King's Indian. Why not? After knight d7, I think I'm supposed to return to knight f3. But I'm not quite sure. It's been a while since I rechecked what my notes say here. g4 might look strange, but it actually restricts, in many cases, it does a very, very good job of restricting black's counterplay on the king's side. And it's very, very difficult for black to get, I mean, provided I'm not, provided I don't misplay it badly later. But the setup when white plays g4 and then secures his e4 pawn and then starts playing. Actually, it's possible for white to play on both flanks in many cases in this type of positions. Not this exact position, but a position very close to this one in spirit has been seen a lot in games of Evgeny Tomashevsky, who is a great proponent of the King's Indian. I mean, similar King's Indians, not this particular position, of course, but similar King's Indians with white. He has been doing very, very well against this opening recently. Yeah, this is where it gets tricky, because I would like to play, for instance, h4 here, but then I think my opponent has a very promising piece sacrifice. But okay, let's see if he understands this. So I think the best move after h4 for black here is knight takes g4, bishop takes g4, knight d3 check, king f1, and knight takes b2. For some reason, I thought this was not possible, but maybe it is. No, but definitely not knight e8. He should have gone either knight h5 or b4. We'll maybe we can return to this position a bit later. I want to show you those ideas because they are quite typical in this structure, and it's important to be aware of those tactical patterns if you're a King's Indian player. But here he should not be in time. I'm not sure I need to play d6, but I would like to. I mean, queen d5 check is a very nice next move if I get it in. I forgot about bishop c6, but my opponent also missed that chance. And now, well, this is an incredibly bad move. This is an unbelievably bad move. I got distracted by something for a second. No, but not because of this. He could have taken on b5 in reply. And then the position becomes completely unclear, but now I'm giving mate. Okay, so let's go through this briefly. After you go h4, there's a typical combination available to black here. Hang on a second. There's bishop c5. I'm not making much sense. Bishop takes c5 just wins a piece here. The position I was talking about was bishop takes g4 check. I need to go to f1 now. Knight takes b2, and let's say I'm more or less forced to go queen c2. Bishop takes g4, queen takes b2, and for instance f5. And black gets well, some play on the king side for the sacrifice material. And also after b5, g5, I think my opponent needed to play b4 here, which is justified by the fact that if I take the bishop on g7, c takes d2 is check, and after queen takes d2, he can play something like king g7, bishop h6 is unfortunate, but he can play, I don't know, rook fc8, for instance, here. And we get a strange kind of a position where, you know, if I'm not giving immediate mate on the king side with h5, which I probably am not, black will have his own counterplay. Okay, one final game. Let's see if we can pick a good opponent for our final foray into the unknown. White once again. Okay. I've been playing a lot of this recently because as you know, many people are currently, I've been struggling to find something playable against, let's say, the Petrov. The Petrov, if you go on e4, and you know the whole group of openings, queens can be declined, Nimzo, queens Indian, all this set of openings if you go 1d4. So okay, let's go for a very slow approach here. You can try and play c4 in positions like this, and I've been doing this myself, but you can also play as if nothing is going on here. Although it's harder, actually. The fact that the knight is on g8 makes it impossible for me to get h3, g4, bishop g6, knight h4 in, because the h4 square is controlled by his queen. So this actually makes no real sense. When black starts by developing the knight on to f6 immediately, then you can do all that. I still should start with bishop b2 here, I believe, because I could run into some trouble with bishop b4. Okay, and now finally I can make my moves. But the fact that I was forced to play a4 on the queen side limits my options on the queen side severely. Very much, and I don't really like this, to be honest, but you need to justify the previous play somehow. With the pawns on a5 and a4, what I'm trying to say is that black can, for instance, play for the queen side castling here, by just play queen c7, for instance, followed by castling long, and it will be almost impossible for me to open more than half open the c file on the queen side with the pawns on a4 and a5, and you know, the iron grip black has on the b4 square. So this is, you know, to a degree a concession. I think castling long was the more ambitious option for my opponent. This is also fine. I'm not laying any claim to advantage here. That would be ridiculous. But once black castles kingside, it becomes possible for white, if he so wishes, to castle kingside as well. But you know, I will try and be more adventurous here. One of the things about this setup is that I mean, white's position is very hard to shake. So he can start. I mean, I need to still be careful, but I think I can afford to play queen g4 here. After bishop b4, I would have to make an extremely ugly move c2, c3, but that's unavoidable. And now the king can just stay on e2. And I am sort of ready to open the king side. And I'm actually quite happy to exchange the queens here, because once the queens come off, I am more or less certain my king on e2 will never be in any kind of trouble. Whereas even with the queens off, black's situation on the king side is objectively quite worrying. Although I need to, once again, I mean, precision is required here. It feels like I should have something concrete here, but I don't see it, regrettably. So I will make a waiting move of some sort. Yeah, I don't know. This feels wrong, but well, I'm incredibly short on time. I failed to appreciate just how low my clock went. Now I'm in a lot of trouble actually, simply because I might not be in time to make all the moves. I am winning though, because my opponent forgot about yeah, that was slightly unedifying, but I was winning. My opponent should have, he had an interesting attempt here. He could, after ed3, cd3, he could have taken on f2. I need to take, and then he collects all those pieces. And this endgame is quite sharp and quite possibly good for black, because black now has gotten rid of all the weaknesses. My pawn on g5 is weak, and also he simply has 2 pawns for the exchange, but on 15 seconds it's very difficult to be in complete control in a position like this, and in the end I barely squeaked through in a battle of 1 second against 0 seconds. This should probably conclude today's Banter Blitz. There will be more Banters coming in the future, hopefully with fewer technical issues. And there are some plans to make the layout smoother and easier to follow, and we will discuss this with Macaulay and the others. And hopefully, my next Banter Blitz will feature a slightly improved visual experience, coupled with no glitches. But I beat Jan, so all that is completely immaterial compared to that triumph. I will be eating out on that game for a while now. Very, very happy about that. Thanks for watching. This has been Peter Svidler for Chess24.